Hello and welcome to Tech for Non-Techies, the only podcast that demystifies the fast-growing technology sector. I'm your host, Sophia Matveeva, Chicago-based MBA and tech entrepreneur. My aim here is to give you the skills, knowledge and confidence to find opportunities in the tech sector, whether that's through founding a company, getting a dream job, or bringing a fresh perspective to your work. Hello, smart people. This is our last episode for 2020. What a year it has been! So in this episode, I want to talk to you about hiring technical professionals to make your vision come to life. If you've been listening for a while, you'll know that I tell non-technical founders who want to build tech-enabled businesses that the best use of their time is not learning to code. If you want to learn to code, if that takes your fancy, then go for it. I'm all for education. But if that's not something that you really want to do, if you're not drawn to it, then the best use of your time is understanding how tech products get made. By that, I mean tech products like apps, sites, and algorithms. You need to understand how they get made and who does what. Once you understand the basics, then you can work intelligently with designers, developers, analysts, and data scientists to co-create products that you want. And I think that's when things get really exciting. And frankly, that's also when your career really takes a leap to the next level. This is what we cover in the What Non-Technical Founders Really Need to Know About Tech course. And the next enrollment for that, by the way, is in January. And there's a free info session. So if you want to join that, then have a look at the show notes. There is a link to the free info session. Once people learn these skills about how tech products are made, then they want to implement them. Implementing them means that they actually need to work with product teams to build products. And so that's what I want to focus on today, because it is an area where so many non-technical professionals make mistakes that end up being very expensive and very stressful. Also, I have made those mistakes myself, and they cost me literally thousands of dollars, and they were stressful and they were embarrassing, and also when I look back at them, they were entirely avoidable. I mean, if somebody else made this podcast when I was building my first ever app, I would have been so happy and I would have literally saved so much money. But anyway, I'm here for you, so you are not going to make the same mistakes that I did. Actually, even in the previous episode, you can literally hear an example of a very typical and expensive non-technical founder mistake. I have just published an ebook on how non-technical founders should go about hiring their product teams. And so this episode is an excerpt of some of the lessons from the ebook. If you want to get the ebook, the link to that is in the show notes. So, lesson one. Lesson one is that you need to work with designers first. The person you need to hire first is a user experience designer. Do not hire developers first. I see this mistake being made all the time. That's literally one of the things that we talk about in the last episode. And also, I made this mistake myself. It is an expensive mistake. There are many more episodes in design, so I'm not going to go into it here. But the main point is that you need to work with a user experience designer to get a prototype and a wireframe for your product. And you need to do this before you even look in the direction of a developer. Remember here that the designer's job is to focus on the usability and not only on the beauty of the product. But when I say this, I'm not telling you to ignore aesthetics, because if something is easy to use but really ugly, then people won't want to use it. We are visual creatures. Even the people who say, oh, I don't care about fashion, there's a reason why so many of us are drawn to the iPhone. It's beautiful, it has beautiful design, it has beautiful advertising. So aesthetics are important too, so don't skim on that, but make sure that you have aesthetics and usability in your design. Okay, my dears, lesson two. You need to have a technical lead, but you don't need to have a CTO. By CTO, I mean Chief Technical Officer. You do not need to have a co-founder CTO at the start. And in fact, this is often very difficult to get right. I think that finding a real co-founder to support your vision and share the risks is like finding the person that you want to marry. It's really hard. Just like people that you want to marry aren't hanging around in every corner with proposals, neither are the right co-founders. And even if you were to meet somebody who might end up being the perfect co-founder with whom you share the ups and downs of the founding journey, you don't just meet them and then all of a sudden start a company and everything's okay. Exactly like progressing to marriage, you need to go through a lengthy period of getting to know each other. It's kind of like dating. There's literally even a website called Co-Founder Dating. So you need to get to know people before you decide to work with them and before they decide to work with you. So if you already have a CTO co-founder, fantastic, that's great. But if you don't, then you might be put off by this lengthy process, and that's where you might get stuck. What I'm saying here is that don't let that stop you, and don't get so caught up on finding the CTO that you then don't get on to doing the things that you actually need to do. There are non-technical founders whom I have interviewed on this podcast who have never had a CTO or who've never had a technical co-founder, and they have done very, very well. What you do need is a technical lead or a technical advisor, because as a non-technical person, there is only a certain amount that you will understand. So you need somebody who is going to help you to interview your developers, who's going to help you interview product teams, and who's going to advise you on the specific technology that you need. This can be a weekly phone call, or it can be a fortnightly lunch meeting. So what I'm saying is that this person does not have to leave their job, which is probably really well paid. They're probably working in a big tech company, and they don't have to leave that and sit with you in your damp garage writing code. Your technical lead or technical advisor can advise you part-time, and usually that's not a hire. So at the beginning, you're not going to have money, so you literally are not going to be able to pay them. Sometimes they literally just give advice for free, but more often than not, I think they do it in exchange for some advisory options or some equity. So for example, I'm actually advising a startup right now, and one of the reasons why I'm doing it is because I really like the founder, I support their vision, and also every time that we speak and I see their business progressing, I'm learning something. So it's not just about monetary and advisory options exchange, it's literally about learning and co-creating. That's pretty interesting. So, lesson 3. Lesson 3 is that you need to work with a product studio rather than freelance developers or a development shop. What does this mean? At the start, you're probably not going to hire people in-house, and I go through why that is in the ebook. So that basically means that you're probably going to work with outsourced teams. There is some stigma attached to working with outsourced teams, but it is quite outdated. It is still there though. But if this stigma is something that you're worried about, then I want you to listen to the episodes with Asaf Navot, the founder of Homemade, and another episode with Alexandra Zubko, who is the co-founder of Triptease. You will see that they have both built successful big businesses, and they've both raised millions working with outsourced product teams. So it's totally possible, and it is a totally legitimate route to market. All right, so there are 3 types of outsourcing. There are agencies, and usually they're user experience agencies, and they're more focused on design. And you'll see an example of that in the previous episode. Then there are development shops, and they mainly focus on writing code. So it's basically a bunch of developers who usually work with other developers to write code. And then there are product studios. And product studios tend to have a more holistic approach to the whole product. So product studios will usually have some kind of product manager / project manager. They'll usually have designers and developers and some kind of analytic capability to work with you. If you are totally new to the product development process, a good product studio is a much less risky bet than the other options. They will be more expensive usually because, they're providing you more service, but don't make a false economy. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to lead a product team, which you're not going to at the beginning, it's better that you hire somebody who is going to take you through this process and from whom you're going to learn. So don't only look at this as a way of getting your product made, but look at this as an investment in your professional education. If you want to get an example of a product team, listen to the episode with Iggy Molliver. I think that was in about September. That's where Iggy talks about the product studio where he works. So I've worked with developers for years, and honestly, I just want you to know that I would not hire a development shop by themselves unless I had a technical lead or a CTO to instruct them. I am a non-technical founder, so I cannot give directions to developers about technical architecture directly. I do need to have somebody who understands how to talk to me and how to check people's code. If you want to get more than just these 3 lessons, then the ebook has the answers that you need. It is called How to Hire Your Product Team and Go From Idea to App, a guide for non-technical founders. The link to that is available in the show notes. And here is what we cover in the ebook. In the ebook, you get a list of product studios that have been recommended by non-technical founders that I know. And also I recommend a firm that I've worked with. So these are recommended, reputable companies. You also get a guide on how to set your budget for prototypes and minimum viable products and for market testing. So if you're thinking of raising money, then you need to know how to set a budget, and the ebook really helps you with that. We've also got a section on what to do if you don't have a technical co-founder. You also get advice on what to look for when hiring a user experience designer. This is really important because if your design doesn't work for your target user, it doesn't matter how brilliant your code is. I also go through the difference between development shops, product studios, and in-house development teams in more detail. And what I really love is that there are examples of successful non-technical founders. And I think that's really important for you guys because it really helps to get practical advice and inspiration. And when I speak to non-technical founders, I want to get inspired, but also I want to see literally what they did, so step by step. And you get some examples of that. So the link to the ebook is in the show notes. Check it out if this is a topic you're interested in. As I mentioned, this is our last podcast episode for 2020. So I just want to wish you a fantastic holiday. I'll be back in early January with more interviews of interesting people and more lessons from me. So until then, have a fabulous time. Eat lots of really yummy food. Watch lots of comforting TV. And congratulate yourself on getting through this very different year. And if you're loving what you're learning, then come and join our membership. You'll get weekly live masterclasses with global experts. You get a mini course on how to go from idea to live app. You also get a supportive online community, which I just love. And you get a whole library of masterclasses from people who have gone through Y Combinator, who teach at Harvard Business School, and from some of the most interesting and successful non-technical founders today. And also you get monthly live coaching with me. So really, what is not to like? So have a look at techfornontechies.co and check out the membership section. On that note, thank you very much for listening. Have a wonderful holiday, and I'll speak to you in January.